So the question is, can the likes of an Ernie Stewart and a John O'Brien slow down the tempo? You see Eddie Pope healthy again. There's O'Brien, who has shown remarkable skill, and when he's been healthy, he's been a dangerous force for the U.S., which will be wearing the traditional all-whites. Trinidad and Tobago will be wearing the red with the black trim.
And O'Brien has been starting regularly for Ajax in Amsterdam in the Dutch First Division.
In case you don't know what Ajax is, it's the New York Yankees of Dutch soccer, a club with great tradition that has often played its way out of domestic competition all the way into European continental competition.
Well, several European championships. We saw DeMarcus Beasley there again. Good opportunity to witness the development of his skills and whether he can move along into the first team.
Jamaica's Peter Prendergast is in the middle of the field. You may remember him from the U.S. semifinal round game at Costa Rica and the phantom call which went against Greg Berhalter after Frankie Haydock had what looked like a penalty kick foul forgiven by Prendergast. He then did what appeared to be a make-good call against Berhalter, and in the resulting anger, both Bruce Arena and Claudio Reyna were suspended for their post-game gestures and comments toward Mr. Prendergast.
The U.S. lineup with two 19-year-olds, Landon Donovan, DeMarcus Beasley, one 21-year-old in Steve Cherundolo, the right back.
There is Bruce Arena, who is looking very carefully at Greg Vanny today, giving DeMarcus Beasley a chance to show that he belongs in the 23-man roster that will play in Japan and Korea. The game is on. Beasley knocks it down for O'Brien. Landon Donovan. Jovan Karofsky wearing number 7 today. There's Steve Cherundolo, Ernie Stewart, Cherundolo. It is so hot here that it would not be at all surprising if one or both teams sit in a bit and let the other team hold the ball in the middle third of the field for as much as 10 minutes of this first half. Otherwise, they jeopardize their conditioning and they expose themselves to a potential of just running out of gas in the last 15 minutes. Arnold Tuarica, a very clever and quick player. O'Brien takes a piece of him and gets called for the hold. This portion of the match is brought to you by Haviland. Ty, this Trinidad and Tobago team has been a bit of a disappointment because of the way it fell apart. There are so many good individuals on this team.
They may have been overconfident after their stellar performances in the first round of World Cup qualifying, but they were eliminated early here in this final round of qualifying. But they are still a team possessing tremendous speed. And this field at 78 yards wide, 120 long, leaves a lot of space for their speed.
Here's Stern John juggling it off the thigh, tries a 25-yarder. It is well wide of Zach Thornton.
Stern John, the 1998 leading scorer in Major League Soccer with the Columbus Crew. That was good enough to get him a contract, Nottingham Forest in England.
Pope, O'Brien to Agus. Agus has played every minute of World Cup qualifying in the final round for the United States. He has been an Ironman, and what a year for Agus, the defender of the year in Major League Soccer, leading the San Jose Earthquakes to MLS Cup. Agus carries unopposed through the middle third, switches the point of attack. Cherundolo sneaking up. You can see how wide the field was. That was a 60-yard pass. Cherundolo, corner for Karofsky, turns it, looking for Joe Maxmore. Donovan can't get a good piece of it and goes down. Deflects the Andrews attempt to clear. Landon Donovan, not a good first clean touch, but he made the most of his chance there.
Landon Donovan running up front with Joe Maxmore right there. That was the tandem that got the job done for the United States in the game that put them into the 2002 World Cup, that victory over Jamaica.
Clint Mathis trained with the U.S. team, but he's still at least a month and a half away. Ben Olsen still coming back from ankle surgeries. Ante Razov has just recovered from a problem with a nerve in his ear after banging his head. He was able to train a little bit, but isn't quite game fit yet.
And Josh Wolf on the U.S. bench. We expect to see him later.
Bruce Arena told us yesterday he wanted to see about 30 minutes out of Wolf, depending on the situation in the game. Tuarica goes down underneath Stewart's push. So Trinidad and Tobago with an early chance to serve it into the box. Big targets up front, including Nigel Pierre. Pierre, number 18 in black and red at the top of the box. And he was the target man, but Pope climbs the ladder and gets it out. Saunders down into the corner for the overlapping Elcock. Can't keep it in bounds, and the U.S. will have a goal kick.
Ansel Elcock, number 13 of the Columbus Crew of Major League Soccer. And a third cousin of Stern John, who's playing and wearing the number 14 for Trinidad and Tobago today.
In goal, Zach Thornton is expected to have a flawless game and to communicate well. You must carry 3 goalkeepers on your final World Cup roster of 23 men. It's pretty clear that Keller and Friedel will be 2. So who's going to be the third? Tony Meola, with 97 caps or full international appearances for the U.S., is a pretty well-known quantity. Thornton now has a chance to make an impression, and the impression he has to make is a 0 on the board and to communicate well with his backliners.
And Keller was slated to start this game, came up with a bone spur problem in his ankle on Thursday and was sent back to England.
The U.S. would like to see surgery quickly on Keller, but his club team will also have a say in that as they pay the salary. Donovan looking for the fleet Beasley against Elcock. Elcock recovers on the angle. Beasley head up looking for an option. Going corner on the overlap. Craig Vanny, who's a good server of the ball, curls it out. The header down, goes just wide. Karofsky with a good back post chance. Vanny doing the job and serving it dangerously.
Excellent movement by the United States up that left flank. Good combination between the 19-year-olds, Donovan and Beasley, and then the overlap by Vanny, and a perfectly served ball over towards the back post. Karofsky heading down, but heading inaccurately.
This portion of the match brought to you by Budweiser. Nigel Pierre takes a run at it in midfield, and there's Angus Eve popping it forward. Vanny up to win the ball. Beasley, nice first touch to O'Brien, and gets it right back. Just 19 years old. Now he throws it down into the corner. A bit of a hopeful ball ahead of Joe Max Moore's run, and it doesn't work.
Well, what's something that's pretty cool, Jack, is we've seen it over the last couple of days. Almost inseparable are Donovan and Beasley. They've been pals since the U17 national team and leading up to the U17 World Cup, where they were picked as the 2 best players in the world at the U17 level in that competition.
Pope against very little pressure. Chirundolo. Karofsky showing nicely. Saunders coming over, gives him a bang and rides him out of bounds. The throw to the U.S.
When you see Jovan Karofsky miss a chance like he did a moment ago, you know in the back of his mind he only has so many chances to ensure that he's in that lineup going to South Korea and Japan.
Chirundolo for Karofsky, and they're going to rule it is a goal kick. Well, is it payback for Trinidad and Tobago? Certainly the Titans would like to pay back the Ravens. It's an AFC Central battle. Ravens and Titans Monday night at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. Monday Night Football on ABC. Don't miss the annotated Dennis Miller each Tuesday morning online at ESPN.com. Keyword Monday Night Football. By the way, tonight on ESPN, Raiders and Seahawks as we are getting into the guts of the NFL season. The United States national soccer team playing its 10th and final World Cup qualifier here. John O'Brien looking forward. Has Donovan in a seam. Goes into the box. Gets ridden down in the box. Good play on the body. Stokely Mason tracking back to prevent Donovan from getting a clean chance.
The United States keeping the ball on the ground, exploiting the spaces that are available here on a 78-yard wide field, and able to come right up the middle on some of these attacks with some good one-touch passing. John O'Brien showing that not only can he control the center midfield, but he can get into the attack as well and help create for Landon Donovan.
By the way, just standing here, I'm sweating. So the players who are out of the field, who will do anywhere from 7 to 9 miles in sprints today, those guys are going to be laboring if they do not pace themselves quite well in the first half. Karofsky, again, a ton of space for Chirundolo. You'll see this frequently today with the width of the field and the heat. O'Brien unopposed, again with space. Dwarika having a look at him. Now here's Vanny, who had the nice serve earlier. Donovan's on the far post. Goes outside for Beasley. Knocks it first touch, looking for Karofsky too far forward. It'll scoot out of bounds. U.S. moving it along nicely. At Mexico City, a game that will determine which of these 2 teams advances to the final 32. A tie will get Mexico in. Honduras must win and become only the 2nd team ever to win a World Cup qualifier at the Azteca. Almost an impossible task, but as we saw in September, if anybody can win on the road, it is that wild and free Honduras team that has so many great counterattacking athletes.
Yeah, they are an explosive team. And 0-0, that's a very much of a tight wire act for Mexico at this point.
I would have a stomachache if I were a Mexican fan against that Honduras team in the second half. Joe Max Moore coming back to steal it off to Karofsky. Now Donovan showing to the ball right side in midfield. Chirundolo turns it back, gets away from Stokely Mason, and now Agus will run onto it here. Vanny. Beasley switched inside. Vanny gives it to him, gets it right back. Beasley's played some nice first touch balls early in the game. O'Brien again for Beasley, fighting off the mark of Andrews. Karofsky. Stewart. Agus. Vanny. Beasley. Beasley and Vanny hooked up on that nice ball that Vanny served across, and Karofsky headed it down, which is often the toughest place for a keeper to stop a headed ball. Expecting it high, and it comes in low. Joe Max Moore, the hero against Jamaica, gives it back to Beasley. Runs it down before it reaches the sideline. Works outside against Andrews' mark. Moore chips into the box. Karofsky tries to turn. Saunders deflects it out of bounds. And Prendergast makes the call, not the assistant, and it will be a corner to the U.S. This portion of the match brought to you by Phillips.
Well, the USA approaching quite nicely again in the attack, keeping the ball on the ground for the most part. Trying to spring Karofsky as Donovan had made a decoy run. But you can see right now TNT very content to drop back in and conserve energy. I think they're hoping that the United States expends a lot of energy here, and then later on in the game, Trinidad can make them pay.
Entering the 11th minute. Moore's corner all the way across the 6-yard box. O'Brien goes in against a bicycle attempt clear by Stern John, and on they play. Chirundolo aggressively to win the ball against Nigel Pierre. Comes all the way back to Shaka Hislop, who's outside his box. And now here's Dwarika. Hesitation move against Stewart. Stewart forces him wide, and he runs it right out of bounds. That's good midfield defense by Ernie Stewart. But Ty, I agree with you. It looks right now as if Trinidad and Tobago is playing possum a little.
Exactly. They're saying, oh, play your hearts out and see what you have left in a few minutes. That only works, though, if Trinidad and Tobago does not give up an early goal.
United States leads this head-to-head series 10 wins, just 1 loss and 2 ties. U.S. never has lost to Trinidad and Tobago in World Cup qualifying. Agassi turning it inside to Saunders, who drops it back to Anthony Rougier. A late call-up. Rougier has a body like a decathlete. And yesterday at practice, he was putting on a show among his teammates. Great athletic ability, and if he can move up into the attack, something that might be a rare venture, he could be a very dangerous player later in this game.
Well, several Trinidad and Tobago players make their living with clubs in the United States in Major League Soccer. Several of them also make their living, like Rougier, in the English professional leagues. And Shaka Hislop in goal for Trinidad and Tobago has been a pro in England for nearly a decade. He's currently with West Ham.
Agassi, who had the best chance of the game against the U.S. in June. They work it across. Elcock dropping it off for Andrews. Saunders straight ahead for Stern John. Agus fights that off and wins the battle. Up to O'Brien. Moore to Karofsky to Stewart, and Chirundolo's overlapping on the right.
Jack, that was shades of DC United against the Columbus Crew in MLS playoffs of years gone by. Agus on Stern John.
Chirundolo shanks it. But it is a deflection coming out, so it'll be a corner kick to the U.S. Now, this is the national team for soccer. Tiger Woods and David Duval represent the United States. It's the EMC World Golf Championships. Coverage begins on ABC Saturday at 1:30 Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. 24 countries involved in that. And by the way, it's up for grabs in Japan. Japan and South Korea will co-host the World Cup of 2002, for which the U.S. has qualified. Vanny's in swinger. O'Brien can't get the half volley on it. And Stern John and Donovan go to the sideline.
The United States, of course, missing 2 of their regular main targets on corner kicks and set plays. Tony Sané, Oliver playing in Germany right now. And of course, Brian McBride still hoping to come back from surgery to relieve that blood clot condition. He's expected to hopefully join the U.S. team in training starting in early January.
The U.S. will play in the Gold Cup at the Orange Bowl and the Rose Bowl in January. Donovan, 20 yards away. O'Brien's drive deflects. Andrews back to Hislop.
The United States possessing the ball with a great deal of confidence, even as they get to the edge of the Trinidad and Tobago penalty area.
We fully anticipate that Bruce Arena will use all 3 substitutions in this game in order to get a good look at a number of different players. Over the top, Nigel Pierre trying to turn against Pope. Lets it rip. Ambitious attempt. It curls and stays in bounds for Tuarica against Cherundolo. Stern John on the near post. Tuarica turns it inside. Holds. Chips across the box. Pope climbs the ladder. O'Brien volleys it clear. Eddie Pope is healthy again for the United States.
Bruce Arena emphasized to us last night how important it is to get Eddie Pope right, to get him ready, because of all the players the U.S. uses in the back, he has the best pace to stay with top-level forwards, and he's had an injury-riddled, he's been slowed by injury, not necessarily out, over the last year and a half, 2 years, and that's something the United States cannot afford.
This portion of the match brought to you by Chevrolet. Fanny. Agus. And again, no pressure at all from Trinidad and Tobago here, conserving in the first 15 or 16 minutes of this match. Cherundolo pushing forward. Joe Max Moore bumped from behind by Mason and play on. Saunders. Pierre dropping it back for Andrews. The ball has been in Trinidad and Tobago's end about 80% of this game so far. Sancho. Saunders. And Elcock going long on the right side. Beasley tracking back and wins the ball. DeMarcus Beasley has proven himself defensively. His coach Bob Bradley of the Chicago Fire is along for this trip, along with Dave Sarachan and Bruce Arena. Donovan the long ball looking for Stewart. It comes all the way in to Hislop. Beasley has learned the game well, and Bob Bradley has been an excellent mentor for him.
Well, Beasley, everyone knows about his offensive skills. Very quick on the dribble and also very confident in working combinations in tight spaces. But the true test in MLS was, can he get back and defend when needed? He proved that with the Chicago Fire. Now he's trying to prove it here also in a full international, a World Cup qualifier. And this could be a fun little duel going on this near side between the speed of Ansel Elcock, number 13 for Trinidad and Tobago, and the young DeMarcus Beasley.
Yeah, 13 years difference. Beasley, a 19-year-old, and Elcock, 32. Pretty close to the end of his full international career. Here's Tuarica, who has taken over for the retired Russell Latapi. Latapi continuing to play club ball, but no longer an international. Cherundolo cuts off the angle before the ball can scoot through to John. Steve Cherundolo, a small right back, proving his defensive mettle there. Nigel Pierre trying to back in against Agus, and Agus wins that battle before going down. The U.S. will give up the throw.
Jeff Agus, as always, plugging the middle there, covering in behind Eddie Pope, and reading the play to thwart the attack. Ansel Elcock came to the United States to play in MLS and joined the Columbus Crew because he was watching Major League Soccer games here in the Caribbean on ESPN.
And he said, hey, I can play in that league.
Yeah, give me a shot.
He sure could. Angus Eve taking a run here. The U.S. player is down, and Peter Prendergast is signaling that the stretcher needs to come on here.
Well, we've seen a few little knocks and bruises at midfield. DeMarcus Beasley trying to win this head ball, catches a forearm. It comes down pretty hard as well after the initial contact. But he gets up quite well as he challenges for this ball, and there's the extended arm. And as slight of build as DeMarcus Beasley is, you wonder how he does get up from these types of situations, but he does over and over again. The problem is, Jack, he missed with the Chicago Fire towards the end of the regular season, even the early part of the playoffs, several games because he had a problem with headaches.
Always have to be careful when a player is coming back from headaches. Cuauhtemoc Blanco has scored for Mexico. From what we understand, there's a little over 20 minutes to go in the game at the Azteca. So Mexico now has insurance because it can give away a goal to Honduras and still with a tie advance to the World Cup Finals of 2002. If Honduras should not make it, the Hondurans will have only themselves to blame. They will finish with a losing home record because they're on the road today, of course. They are done with their home slate. They had a losing home record and put themselves in the position of having to win at Mexico City on the final day.
Well, and a nearly insurmountable challenge for Honduras to try and win in the last 20 minutes, having to score 2 at nearly 8,000 feet of elevation.
Beasley still on the sideline as the U.S. plays 10 against 11 here.
Beasley had a minor concussion with headaches that followed. And Bob Bradley, the Chicago Fire coach, wisely kept him out of some action when maybe he could have put him in.
Agus going up over the top to win the ball against Angus Eve. Now O'Brien. Beasley asking to come back in, and Prendergast says, come on ahead. So the U.S. is back to 11 on 11. Cherundolo against Stern. John's challenge on the far side. It's off Cherundolo, and the throw in to Trinidad and Tobago. And here we are in the 20th minute, and you can see the TNT's starting to ramp up the effort a little bit. On a day like today, almost impossible to go at full throttle for 90 minutes or even 75. Tuarica takes it away, tries to step over move, penetrates across the middle, and there's Zach Thornton to snare it. This portion of the match is brought to you by Hershey's Syrup.
Well handled by the big man, Zach Thornton. A formidable wall there near the U.S. near post. But Tuarica showing his flair on the dribble as he got past a couple of U.S. defenders in tight spaces.
Here comes Vanny. Now Beasley. O'Brien. Karofsky. Elcock, by the way, has shifted forward into more of a midfield position. Here's Cherundolo with a passer on the right side. Tries it into the box. Headed back out by Rougier, who gets way up. Beasley gets hammered 30 yards from goal. That'll be a great free kick chance for the United States. A good angle here.
Ugly tackle by Angus Eve on Jamarcus Beasley. And they know Jamarcus Beasley listed at 126 pounds. They're trying to see whether he can stand up to the physical punishment. But that's just a plain ugly tackle. It should have minimally been a yellow card. And frankly, that warrants a red card because it was obvious that there was an intent to injure. And it was from behind as well. No doubt there was intent there. Which technically doesn't come into it, but a challenge from behind, which endangers the opponent, should be at least a yellow card.
Karofsky over the ball. He'll try it. Just over the top. Jeff Agus, he's ready with his left foot on those free kick situations, as is Greg Vanny. Vanny hit a couple of tremendously thunderous shots at training yesterday. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see him unleash one from long range. Shaka Hislop, who plays his club ball for the legendary West Ham United Club in London. Nigel Pierre against Pope. Long drive from Tuarica, just goes wide. Well, Tuarica will let it go with a hair trigger, and there it was. What a skilled player. Well, wisely, Tuarica unexpectedly unleashing this long-range attempt. And you can see that Zach Thornton wasn't quite ready for this as he scrambled over. Look at this. First-time shot hit tremendously. And Zach Thornton really counting his lucky stars at that one, sailed wide. So after sitting in for the first 15 minutes, Trinidad and Tobago now is starting to take the action of the U.S. Agus swings it side to Cherundolo. Again, a ton of space wide, especially in the middle third of the field. You defend the goal, not the middle third. And on a field this wide, you can't expend too much energy. And this long, full 120 in this heat, steamy conditions. Stewart at the top of the box, outside of the foot a bit, hopeful, and Andrews pops it up. O'Brien in to try to win the ball. Nigel Pierre dumps it up the right side. Agus back to retrieve it. Vanny again swinging it. Joe Max Moore was onside, but the pass too far forward as Sancho was out marking Joe Max. Jack Tuarica's long-range attempt a moment ago, I think he's trying to take advantage of the fact that Zach Thornton right now is staring into a lower and lower sun straight into his face. So part of the reason I think Zach Thornton was caught by surprise, not only because it was a first-time shot, but also because I think it was difficult for Thornton to pick out where that ball came from because of that glare in his face. Elcock brings it back to Rougier. Sancho Mason on the side, bringing it back to Rougier. As Thornton glares out at the sun, we should know that that's going to get worse in the second half, and Shaka Hislop, at least for the first 20 or so minutes of the second half, will be almost blinded for any ball coming in from this very angle. You can see how long the shadows are. Of course, we're only about 6 weeks from the winter solstice. The sun very low in the sky, even here in the tropics. We are 1 hour ahead of Eastern time. We're on Atlantic time. So locally, it is about 20 minutes to 4 in the afternoon. Karofsky, the cross too far for Joe Max Moore. Here's Dwarica, who had that terrific shot earlier. Storm John going left, Nigel Pierre on the right. They split and give space for the carry. Dwarica into the corner for John. Chirundolo, the defender. Hope shifts over on Dwarica. They have to come back out onto the perimeter. Mason. Dwarica. Very comfortable. Turns it inside. Agus had the angle on Nigel Pierre. Karofsky off to DeMarcus Beasley. Pierre has looked a little bit young, and Agus, showing his experience, has tracked him well.
Well, in fact, initially, it was expected that Gary Glasgow, who plays for the Kansas City Wizards in Major League Soccer, would be the starting forward with Stern John, and really Dwarica playing nearly as a third forward, roaming in behind those two.
Chirundolo forward for Joe Max Moore against Sancho. Turns it inside. Here's Karofsky in the box, looking across. O'Brien turns, faces, heel pass. Stewart's shot blocked up in the air. Saunders getting a piece of Stewart's shot. Dwarica. Confrontation, wins it against Karofsky. Now Mason. Offside as Stern John was too far forward. Karofsky had a pretty good chance earlier for the United States.
Very early in this match, the United States building well. And Karofsky with his second chance of the game on this free kick just over the bar.
And the Phillips goal cam view. Wow. Saw the shadow of the ball.
And the ball, that was dipping. I mean, Karofsky, had he been another yard or two farther out, may have got that under the bar.
Ernie Stewart, who had his shot blocked just moments ago, takes the space with the change of pace. The shot goes just wide. Hislop had the post covered. This portion of the match brought to you by Allstate.
Neat little work by John O'Brien moments ago, setting up Ernie Stewart with the heel ball. Stewart was placing that ball. I think he had Shaka Hislop beaten, but a defender, wasn't sure if it was Saunders or Marvin Andrews who put the block on Stewart's shot.
Vanny looking corner. Moore against Rougier. Elcock over to help out. Off Elcock, and a throw to the United States. Well, so far, Beasley and Vanny, who are newcomers to the lineup, have done quite well for Bruce Arena. Vanny had a dangerous cross. Beasley played some good first touch balls and has come back after getting knocked down. Donovan sets up the left-footed cross, tries the short ball. Rougier blocks it out for a corner. An update from the Azteca. It is now 2-0 for Mexico. Palencia has scored, and there's got to be a huge party going on. 110,000 there today, no doubt. And Mexico looks to be into the World Cup finals, along with the U.S. and Costa Rica from CONCACAF, the confederation that covers North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Moore is offside, and Trinidad and Tobago will have the restart. Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 12:30 Pacific. ABC Sports has a full day of college football for you. Miami against Syracuse. Others will see Michigan, Wisconsin, and in other regional action, Oklahoma against Texas Tech, and Washington State, Washington. I think they call that one the Apple Cup. Trinidad and Tobago wanted to upset the apple cart, and did at Honduras. That was what clinched the spot for the United States after the U.S. had beaten Jamaica 2-1 in Foxborough in early October. Just minutes after that one ended, came word that Trinidad and Tobago had won its first match of the final round of World Cup qualifying at Honduras. The Hondurans hit the crossbar 5 times in that game. This portion of the match is brought to you by Nike. Nike has designed new uniforms, by the way, for the United States. We'll get our first look at them on the 2nd of March. It's doubtful that we'll see weather this nice too often during the World Cup of 2002 because, yes, they're going to have it during the monsoon season. They've actually pushed it forward about 10 days from its normal start time in order to try to avoid the monsoon season as much as possible. Here's bad communication on the back line. Dwarica has a chance, juggles it against Chirundolo. The U.S. recovering in numbers, but has given up this opportunity so far. Pope heads it clear. A bit of lack of communication between Thornton and his backliners, and Trinidad and Tobago did a good job to drop it into that gap.
Well, Dwarica has been the danger man for Trinidad and Tobago. He's so unpredictable. He's also so confident on the one-on-one dribble.
Saunders brings it out wide to Andrews. Andrews the cross. Pope heads it clear. Stewart has a chance to settle, but gives it away. Saunders with Eve overlapping holds the ball. O'Brien a quick challenge. Saunders recovers it back to Sancho. Now out wide to Mason. Here's Dwarica, the danger man as you described him. Stern John coming back to the ball, turns 23-yarder, didn't get a good foot on the ball, and there is Thornton.
Stern John, a very physical presence up front for Trinidad and Tobago. He's been throwing those forearms all over the place, and then it's Dwarica's job to sneak in, infiltrate behind it, and catch those loose balls that a guy like Nigel Pierre or Stern John could shake loose with their size and strength.
Just moments ago, Ernie Stewart had a ball in the defensive third, and instead of settling the ball and turning it, tried a one-touch pass, and it resulted in a turnover. It's not to take anything away from Ernie Stewart. He's just a different kind of player than Claudio Reyna is, but that's exactly the kind of situation where Reyna takes a bit of a panic, and he calms things down for the U.S. Now here's Beasley capitalizing on a 1-2. Going right at Andrews, goes around him, and Hislop comes off his line quickly.
Well, the quickness and acceleration of DeMarcus Beasley, very evident there. He's pushing the ball too far out in front, and Hislop has seen a lot of soccer, a lot of high-level soccer in the English Premier League. It was easy for him to read that, pick it off of Beasley's foot.
Especially attacking from the flanks, as the English seem to do about 85% of the time. Miscommunication between Vanny and Donovan, and the U.S. sprays it out of bounds, and TNT will get the restart.
But a good little give and go to start that sequence for the United States between Beasley and Jovan Karofsky.
Mason going at Chirundolo on the dribble. Stewart over to help out. Saunders available on the perimeter. Karofsky the quick challenge, but now it comes back to Sancho.
Well, Karofsky trying to prove something, as are quite a few of these players, in terms of becoming a part of Bruce Arena's plans. That 23-man roster on May 31st when the World Cup starts in South Korea and Japan. And Vanny's in that boat. Chirundolo for sure. Zach Thornton, as we've talked about, these are the guys Bruce Arena told us it's one of their last opportunities, really, to show that they belong in that 23.
Ball comes up on Nigel Pierre. The U.S. will get the restart. This portion of the match is brought to you by Lego. The U.S. must carry 3 goalkeepers on its 23-man roster. Arena last night told us he couldn't possibly see taking fewer than 7 defenders to Korea and Japan. So that leaves 13 other field spots between the midfielders and the forwards. Joe Max Moore at the arc. Doesn't get it on the right part of the foot, and that one's into the stands on 2 hops.
Beasley so quick. Pushes the ball, gets it back from Karofsky. And watch this. He's going to push it and go. Right? He slightly mishits it. He's bumped enough and pushes it too far, allowing Hislop to come off of his line. But Beasley loves this wide expanse of real estate available on a very smooth field here in Port of Spain.
A cap is a full international appearance for your national side. Miscommunication by Trinidad and Tobago, and Chirundolo will walk the ball down here. Out to Pope. And the Soca Warriors, the men in red and black, concede everything in the front 45 yards of the field. They're comfortable on this field. They know how it plays.
Rene Simoes, formerly the coach of the Reggae Boys of Jamaica, actually helped them for the '98 World Cup in France. Now here with the Trinidad and Tobago squad.
Stewart with the shift inside against Mason. O'Brien, hard tackle through by Rougier to win the ball. Mason, slide tackle from Joe Max Moore to try to win it back. But here comes Elcock with a little bit of space against DeMarcus Beasley. Stern John goes corner. Elcock going too far forward. That was Nigel Pierre on the corner run. A program note coming up next. The three reigning ladies world medalists meet in their first head-to-head competition of the season. Michelle Kwan, Irina Slutskaya, and Sarah Hughes, the young American with such great promise coming into this Olympic winter. Skate Canada next on ABC. Last year, Slutskaya upset Kwan. Kwan has changed coaches recently. The United States has had the same coach all along, Bruce Arena, yet he has used 37 different players in World Cup qualifying in the semi and final rounds. That is an extraordinary number for a side that has not had a coaching change.
The injuries really required that.
O'Brien dances around Tuarica, tries the cross for Donovan. Sancho reads it and knocks it down for Andrews.
Ernie Stewart was making a good far post run there from his right midfield position.
Egg is called for obstructing Nigel Pierre, basically setting a pick for Eddie Pope's header. But Pierre is going to get called for bumping into Agus.
Well, I think Pierre actually initiated it. When the ball was coming in, it was Agus actually just beginning to retaliate.
The intensity of this game is not near what we have seen in other World Cup qualifiers, as neither team has anything at stake. Stewart chips it across the box, and it will roll out for a goal kick to Trinidad and Tobago.
There's Ernie Stewart, who has been scoring at a regular clip, not only for the U.S. national team in World Cup qualifying, but also for NAC Breda in Holland, where over the last several weeks he's been involved in several goals and also creating several goals for his team. So he's a man that's hot offensively currently, even with his club team.
If you're watching us on Wide World and you're not accustomed to watching soccer, we refer to the club teams of these players and the national team. It is, for instance, as if DeMarcus Beasley here, number 19 in white, is playing for the Chicago Bulls in the NBA, and then he's playing for the Dream Team in international competition, the Olympics or the World Championships of basketball, which will be held in the U.S. next year. The U.S. national team comprised of players who are professionals from throughout the world, and they come together in special windows created by the Worldwide Federation of Soccer known as FIFA. And here is DeMarcus Beasley. Vanny, who plays his club ball for the Los Angeles Galaxy, which won the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup after getting beaten in the MLS Cup finals. Karofsky, who has found a home in England. Agus, captain of the San Jose Earthquakes. Vanny again with no pressure now in the forward half of the field. Donovan showing to the ball. He's got Joe Max Moore behind him, tightly marked by Rougier, has to come out to the perimeter. Now Vanny looks as if he wants to switch it. Beasley showing to the ball here. Will he go at Elcock? Tries to change of pace. Elcock reaches out, and it's going to be a push against Beasley. Good thing for Elcock, because an intentional handball like that will earn you a seat on the bench and your team playing with 10.
Initially, though, Elcock showing his experience defending one-on-one. He gets his body out in front. Watch right here. He gets his body between Beasley and the ball. And as long as that ball is within playing distance, that is considered as legal obstruction. So then when the contact comes from Beasley, the call goes against Beasley.
This portion of the match brought to you by Avaya. Tuarica with Cherundolo on his back.
But Elcock not wanting really to match DeMarcus Beasley for quickness, especially because Elcock has to turn and Beasley has that head start, uses the body and did it legally.
Agus, Joe Max Moore, who has dropped back a bit in order to make himself available. Karofsky against Sancho. Cherundolo. 8 field players back, plus the keeper for Trinidad and Tobago as they really sink into the back third. Rougier coming forward against Donovan. Donovan had position. A very similar situation to the Elcock-Beasley situation. And Rougier coming through from behind, whistled for the foul.
Rougier, as you mentioned, very physical in his approach to the game. He can be intimidating. He also can be very menacing coming forward. I think he likes to time his runs out of the back, make a big defensive play, immediately push into that counterattack, and what a counterattack it would have been.
That's exactly the kind of situation we were talking about earlier, where he picks his spots, but had he broken free with that ball cleanly, that's trouble for the U.S. because Trinidad and Tobago had numbers. Here's O'Brien working against a packed-in D. Stewart back to Agus. Well, the U.S. isn't going to run out of gas because it really hasn't had to work that hard in terms of a cardiovascular output. There's been a lot of static play here in the first half.
Well, they've kept the ball on the ground. They've spread it around rather than trying the long balls over the top or into the corner, which would deplete the attacking players' legs and lungs.
Fairway quality field here. O'Brien tries the stop move. His drive. Hislop has it covered. Shaka Hislop, all of 6'4", a very big target.
John O'Brien stepping forward in the attack, as he has done 6-7 times in this first half of play. Not only helping to keep possession, but trying to get into these scoring positions. And he likes the left foot. Good shielding move as he bumps the defender away. Just not good enough placement on that ball to beat a keeper of the caliber of Shaka Hislop.
I don't know if we've ever seen two larger goalkeepers head-to-head than Zach Thornton and Shaka Hislop.
Immense is the word.
Thornton is 6'3", enlisted at 210, but you know, after a plate of ribs, I got a feeling he's closer to 220 than 210. Karofsky, O'Brien, the U.S. looking for some seams against a well-numbered Trinidad and Tobago defense. Agus has Vanny. Agus, absolutely no pressure here because the numbers are back here. O'Brien, Donovan, back to the perimeter. Stewart has Cherundolo racing right side into that space. Sancho, the defender, looking for Karofsky. Rougier on the clear. Cherundolo goes hard against Dwarika. Good tackle, and Dwarika wins the ball cleanly.
The team today, Jack, that gets those wingbacks, the wide defenders, into the attack and times it well is the team that's going to create the most scoring chances. We saw Cherundolo there trying to get forward.
There's an offside here. We'll remind you that just a few minutes from now, the All-State halftime report is coming up. What a wild ride it has been, Ty. Remember back in February in Columbus thinking, man, November's a long way away. We're going to look back at this whole year. We're also going to see who has qualified, and Ty will have his first half analysis. DeMarcus Beasley chasing it down into the corner. Does he have the wheels? Not quite. And this will be a goal kick for Trinidad and Tobago. You can see Beasley, that's a wire underneath there. There's not much guy there. 126 pounds when he's dripping wet.
He's pretty durable. He has the passion for the game. This is a player that is poised to achieve potentially at the highest levels.
Beasley would be a snack for Zach Thornton. Angus Eve had a great late first half chance against Casey Keller in Foxborough in June. Dwarika looks long for Nigel Pierre. Agus low bridges him and gets called for backing in underneath the jumping man. Free kick about 40 yards from goal for Trinidad and Tobago. This portion of the match brought to you by Jolly Rancher.
Fortunately, it's a bit breezy today in Port of Spain. And that ball seemed to hang up just a little bit more as Jeff Agus was trying to position himself. And Rougier, powerful guy, good target player.
From the leg, Dwarika showed earlier on the volley that whistle just wide. It wouldn't be at all surprising to see him try one from here. Angus Eve also near the ball, as is Stern John. Trinidad and Tobago asking for 10 yards.
You got to like Stern John right foot from this range.
It is John. Did not get the right part of the foot on the ball, and Zach Thornton will send it back the other way. So in the 43rd minute, Ty Keogh, if you're Bruce Arena, are you satisfied with what you've seen so far?
The United States has not given up many clear chances for Trinidad and Tobago. That's important. You want to be organized. They've also possessed the ball quite well on the ground, as we've mentioned, and they've worked the ball out wide. They've worked their wing backs into the attack. Vanny early on coming up the left side. Cherundolo later in the half a couple of times. So you have to be pleased. You may want, if you want to be nitpicky, let's create a few more chances, because you can count them really on one hand.
Some may be asking, why didn't the U.S. play a 3-5-2 with only 3 in the back? Bruce Arena has come out in a 4-4-2.
Well, as he said to us, there's no way the United States is going to play with 3 men at the back at World Cup. It's going to be a 4-back system. And even though maybe left back is not Greg Vanny's best position, he just has shown with the LA Galaxy that he's more of a central defender. In this game, he's out on that left back side.
Barring a series of injuries, if Vanny is going to make the 23, it is going to be as a versatile player. He's going to have to be able to play wide as well as inside. And that's part of the experiment that's going on today. And here is Vanny. He had the good serve of the ball early. Now Beasley, who's also getting a hard look from Bruce Arena. O'Brien for Donovan in shooting range. In traffic, tries the move, clears the left side, gets into the box. Andrews screens him off and then holds him off against Donovan's push.
Well, there's some big bodies in there for Landon Donovan to try and negotiate pass. He's got the quickness, he has the moves, but as we saw before, Rougier, Elcock, and this time Marvin Andrews, they get the body in on Donovan, so despite his quickness and his dribbling skills, they shut him off from the ball.
Rougier distributes to Andrews, and the U.S. takes a page out of Trinidad and Tobago's style and offers no pressure in the forward third of the field here. No word yet from the sideline on if there will be any stoppage time in the first half. Aside from Beasley going down, there hasn't been a lot of stoppage in the first half.
He was down for a couple minutes, though.
Cherundolo picks the pocket of Mason trying to go inside. A nice clean tackle by Steve Cherundolo. Going up for Donovan. Sancho reads that, torpedoes it over the sideline. Fans here in Port of Spain in a jolly mood. This nation of 1.3 million people getting all the way to the final round of regional qualifying. Trinidad and Tobago will finish last out of 6.
The people here are always very sportsmanlike, friendly, welcoming hosts to this Caribbean island.
Karofsky, top of the box. The deflection off Andrews, and Hislop will save it.
The wind picking up force and speed here.
We are in stoppage time, and I am looking at the 4th referee, and no stoppage time in the first half at all. Prendergast says that's enough. So the United States in its 10th and final World Cup qualifier, a game it does not need to win or tie. It already has qualified. We'll be back for the All-State halftime report.
The corners, and look at here, Jovan Karofsky, he looks at that one and says, hey, if I score that, chances are I make the 23 to go to South Korea. Another chance for Karofsky. He has failed to convert, but then the danger man, as we mentioned, Tuarica for Trinidad and Tobago on the long-range shot. Also here on the dribble has given the United States and Zach Thornton some trouble. DeMarcus Beasley, though, showing flashes of that tremendous acceleration, quickness on the dribble, but they get the body on him, as they do also at times on John O'Brien, but he evades that and still with some masterful skill gets the shot in. Donovan here, also 145 pounds, muscled off the ball in the Trinidad and Tobago penalty area by Marvin Andrews.
A couple of 19-year-olds making good impressions for the U.S., which looks for a marker in the second half. We'll be back 45 minutes without interruption as the U.S. plays Trinidad and Tobago. This has been the All-State Time Report.
Versus Trinidad and Tobago on ABC Sports. Brought to you by Budweiser, official beer of the 2002 World Cup. Haviland, proud sponsor of U.S. Soccer. Haviland, add more life to your car. And Phillips Electronics, we're making the soccer fan experience even better. Phillips Electronics, getting better all the time.
The United States against Trinidad and Tobago, getting set to start the second half. The U.S. has brought on Kobe Jones for DeMarcus Beasley. That is the only substitution for the United States so far. Trinidad and Tobago goes with the same 11 who finished the first half.
Some experience coming on the field for the United States. Kobe Jones at 31 compared to Beasley, who goes off, the 19-year-old. And Beasley proved that acceleration is the name of the game in soccer, as did Landon Donovan on a couple of those chances for the United States in the Trinidad and Tobago penalty area.
This portion of the match brought to you by Haviland. The shadows are going to be brutal on Shaka Hislop when the ball is coming out of this part of the field. Here's Landon Donovan against a much bigger Andrews. Tries to turn it inside, and in defensive support, there's Ansel Elcock. Nigel Pierre kills it. Egg is stepping up in the middle third of the field, and here's some pressure from Vanny. It comes off the U.S. Vanny has acquitted himself pretty well so far today.
Played well in possession. He's also looked good on the overlap, serving that dangerous ball to Karofsky. In the very, very early moments that Karofsky really should have scored, are minimally put on target.
Some news out of the Azteca. It is a final, and we will see green in Korea and Japan. Cuauhtemoc Blanco, who was nearly crippled by a brutal Ansel Elcock tackle, has come all the way back. He scored 2 goals. Palencia had 1. Mexico is in, along with the United States and Costa Rica. Those are the 3 representatives for the 2002 World Cup Finals. Everybody else from North America, Central America, and the Caribbean, they're going to have to wait 4 years. That is a career for many players. Angus Eve around. Angus chips it across the goal mouth, and it slides out. Angus Eve, a very dangerous player, especially when attacking from the right side.
Thank you.
Jack, we watched the Trinidad and Tobago practice yesterday, and Angus Eve attacked with Dwarika repeatedly, just like this, coming up and finding those gaps that are left by Stern John and Nigel Pierre.
6 goals. Eve has a rocket when he gets a chance to set it up.
He's the one that put that vicious tackle on DeMarcus Beasley early in the match. And you wonder if it's the effects of that tackle or that collision with Stern John's forearm that put DeMarcus Beasley out.
Here comes Karofsky, who had a couple of chances but came up shy in the first half. To the far post for Donovan, too far. Elcock against Kobe Jones, and Elcock pounds it all the way across. That'll be a throw-in to the U.S. Donovan showing quickly. Stewart 30 yards from goal. O'Brien has Cherundolo here. Cherundolo wants Donovan. Andrews heading it down. Sancho juggles it out of trouble. Cherundolo gives way to Stewart, who gives it away to Sancho. Nice pick of the pocket. Joe Max Moore coming from behind. Stewart quickly wide. O'Brien was blinded, looking directly into the sun. And even though the ball was on the ground, you turn and you look at the sun, even though it's 93 million miles away. Man, that's not far enough away.
But what I like is you're always going to get that hustle out of Joe Max Moore.
You saw the blinding sun just makes everything a silhouette when you turn in that direction. And Shaka Hislop is guarding the goal, looking into the sunshine. And if the U.S. can get off a shot in the next 15 or so minutes from the left side of the top of the penalty area, Hislop is going to have to guess, because he won't be able to see any spin on the ball for sure.
Paul Caligiuri did it from way out at that goal, November 19th of 1989. The shot heard around the world.
It'll be 12 years ago in a little over a week. Even though the angle that you often have seen in the historic footage is going in the other direction, it was shot from the other side of the stadium. It was into that goal into which the keeper has to stare directly into the sun. Word coming up from the bench on Beasley, Ty?
Jim Hashimoto, the trainer for the U.S. national team, saying that Beasley did feel dizzy at halftime, and they decided to take precautions and give him a rest.
This portion of the match brought to you by Budweiser. Eddie Pope. And there's Agus. The U.S. pushing up the wide backs as Trinidad and Tobago offers little pressure when the U.S. has possession in the back half of the field. O'Brien gets tripped up by Saunders, and a restart for the U.S. from the blind spot about 30 yards from goal. This is a great chance for a Karofsky or an Agus to let fly from here.
Or even try to find Eddie Pope at the back post. Pope will try to challenge Shaka Hislop, who has dealt with many high balls in his career in England.
Well, you look at the shadows, and this ball is coming right through the axis of those shadows. Hislop is looking directly into the sun. There's the shot. Agus will serve it far post. Pope on the header, pops it up. Hislop punches it clear. Good work from Hislop, and Sancho turns and knocks the ball across the sideline at midfield.
Shaka Hislop well off of his line there. Very rangy. Plus, he's not afraid to bang on a few bodies because he will disperse them as he gets to the ball.
Breeze picking up just a little bit here. It's swirling now at Hazley Crawford Stadium in Port of Spain, Trinidad. Karofsky getting held by Sancho. Mason holding the ball deep in his defensive corner.
Don't foul him here. Make him give us the ball.
And Mason volleying it clear, doing good work, but giving it away to Cherundolo, and good composure by Karofsky. Cherundolo crosses it off of O'Brien, who's just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Mason knocks it back out of bounds.
The patience by Karofsky there, pressuring the ball, forced the turnover. the easiest thing for the team that's under pressure, Trinidad and Tobago, there would be if Karofsky would have caused a foul. Now they've got time to get the ball out.
Stern John knocks down Cherundolo from behind.
There's Stern John. Very physical approach to the game in either penalty area.
Pope puts it up for grabs. It's Andrews heading it clear. Andrews made a huge error in Foxborough in June. Ernie Stewart was just going to go pressure him, and as it turned out, Andrews fumbled the ball directly into Stewart, who took it in stride and went in for a breakaway goal. Nigel Pierre going deep left corner against Agus here. Agus trying to shepherd him. Pierre, change of pace, comes middle, drive by John, and what a save by Zach Thornton. That's what Thornton's got to do to prove that he should be the third keeper.
Well, Stern John got all of that ball, and he sets it towards the upper corner. Zach Thornton, though, phenomenal athleticism to reach this ball. He reacts to it well. He had a bead on it the entire way. Watch Stern John step through this ball full stride. Ball's heading for the upper corner. Zach Thornton, who had the lowest goals against average in Major League Soccer in the 2001 season, shows why.
Thornton has meat hooks for hands. No rebound there. Karofsky is offside, late flag, but the referee's assistant had a pretty good look at it. He was well positioned. 53rd minute here at Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, and we're still sweating, but the temperature has dipped down into the 80s now. It was 90 at game time. The sun was a little bit higher in the sky then. Rougier playing it out of his own end with Andrews here. Andrews unopposed. Tries a 50-yard pass. Agus goes over John to win the ball. O'Brien. Cherundolo. Kobe Jones onside against Mason. Jones beats him to the end line, turns it inside. Sancho heads it clear. It's off Angus, even out of bounds. Cherundolo, corner for Jones. Jones's cross looking for more, goes over the top, and Elcock will let it run out of bounds. Goal kick to Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, Kobe Jones is a battler. He'll fight, and he's also a bit more durable physically than DeMarcus Beasley, the player that he replaced. Jones at 31 has had a lot of defenders have a go at him. He's able to ride those tackles, absorb more of that physical punishment, still get the cross in.
John tries a flick-on header. Vanny reads it up to O'Brien. Stewart. John takes him down from behind. Elcock going on the right side. Here comes Stern John against Agus. John, the change of pace, top of the box. Hook comes over to Elcock. Through it's Angus Eve, and he misses the far post. Well, it all started with Ansel Elcock stealing the ball in midfield, and then Stern John taking off and penetrating against given space.
I'll tell you what, this is a good pass from Stern John as he splits the U.S. defense. He's on a strong run here after getting the ball from his cousin, Ansel Elcock. He splits a couple of defenders here, puts it behind Cherundolo. Angus Eve misses the target. Give some credit, though, to Zach Thornton. He comes out, makes himself pretty big, cuts that angle, but it was still a shot that Eve could have made and should have made.
So it opens up a little bit. Joe Max Moore trying to thread the needle to Jones with composure, holds the ball, brings it back. Smart play. It wasn't available to the corner, so Jones brought the ball back. Kobe Jones making his 143rd appearance for the full national side in an international competition. That, of course, is the all-time record for an American player. Jones says that of all the international teams he's been on for the U.S., this has the best chemistry. More guys who will fight for each other and work hard. He says you don't have to be buddies off the field, but when you come to the park, you've got to be ready to play for each other. And he says this team is better at that than any he's been on.
Well, and as Bruce Arena told us last night, no position is guaranteed on this team, so all these guys are battling for the same spots.
Ravens and Titans, it's turning into quite a rivalry in the AFC Central. The Ravens spanked the Titans earlier this season. Monday night at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific on ABC Sports. They go at it again. And don't forget, Sunday Night Football tonight on ESPN, Raiders and Seahawks. This portion of the match is brought to you by Phillips. Shaka Hislop. It's Dwarika. Goes into traffic. Saunders rescues him. Andrews, Mason. Saunders. Good one-touch play. John against Agus, who's forcing him back. Gives it away. It's off O'Brien. Dwarika settles at midfield. Donovan giving chase. Dwarika against Agus. Plays it forward for Nigel Pierre. Behind Dwarika. Makes the adjustment. Through ball for Eve. Saved by Thornton coming off his line. That's excellent play from Zach Thornton. Now can the U.S. counter. Donovan steps around in midfield. Takes on Saunders. Goes wide. Donovan into the corner from O'Brien. Rougier coming through hard. Oh, he bangs with Donovan. And Rougier showing the physical nature of play.
Not only that, he showed some wheels to get over there in a hurry and squelch that run by Landon Donovan. But here's Dwarika. We've seen how good he is on the dribble. Here he sends a little pass into Stern John. It's flipped over inside. Look at this pass and the well-timed run. And think back to the first half. Zach Thornton, what a save coming off his line very quickly. Phillips goal cam gives us a tremendous look at what Zach Thornton had to work with on that play, and he makes the biggest stop of the afternoon. But Trinidad and Tobago, remember the first half, they were very calm. They saved a lot of energy. They're using it now.
Kobe Jones drives it across the box. Moore can't climb the ladder for the header. Check it. It was O'Brien going in far side.
We saw O'Brien turn the jets on into the corner to get that ball played in front of him. And we saw Rougier sprint and cover that ground so quickly. And that put the body on Landon Donovan. Talk about bodies. Zach Thornton using his massive presence there to keep Trinidad and Tobago off the scoreboard.
If you're looking at this game in a vacuum, the United States has not played badly for a World Cup qualifier on the road. It's played rather conservatively, hasn't taken a lot of chances. It is giving up more opportunities here, but still is in position to win this game as we have 30 minutes to go.
But in the second half, Trinidad and Tobago have created by far the most dangerous chances.
Vandy with an obvious push right in front of the referee's assistant as he gives Ansel Elcock a shove. And with Elcock up within 20 yards of the U.S. goal line, that's an indication of how Trinidad and Tobago is starting to pull out the stops.
Danny just stepping into the path, playing the man instead of the body, getting called for this, which could be a very dangerous free kick when you think of the power of Stern John in the air near the back post.
Dwarika's serve, looking far post for Andrews, just wide. Goal kick to the U.S. Well, Americans are starting to give up chances on a rather regular basis, and with Trinidad and Tobago's talent, that's going to get costly.
Yeah, this ball from Dwarika, and Stern John's the decoy. He runs towards the center, leaving that back post space for Marvin Andrews, and he gets up well. And a well-placed cross by Andrew Dwarika.
This portion of the match brought to you by Chevrolet.
I'll correct myself, it's Arnold Dwarika, but he has been the most dangerous player overall, certainly for Trinidad and Tobago on the dribble, and also some good passes into those front runners, Nigel Pierre and Stern John.
Jones off Donovan, a little too hot to handle, and Rougier back for Hislop, who must play it with the feet on the back pass. Alongside Ty Keown with our ABC crew, I'm Jack Edwards. Glad you could be with us for the 10th and final game of the final round of World Cup qualifying for the United States. We're coming your way live from Port of Spain, Trinidad. The U.S. against Trinidad and Tobago. The U.S. already has clinched a spot. Mexico also did that today. Costa Rica got in by beating the U.S. back in September. So those are the three nations that will represent this region of the world in the 32-team World Cup Finals field. The draw will be in Korea on the 1st of December. Mason, the cross, Thornton to the far post, and Vandy has to head it out, conceding the corner. And again, Trinidad and Tobago penetrating on the wings. The U.S. is starting to give up a lot on the flanks in the middle third of the field. Trinidad and Tobago is flying up the sides without much opposition.
Trinidad and Tobago has waited for the temperatures to drop to pick up the pace of their play. It's a wise decision here in the tropics.
Who lives here, baby?
Yeah. Hey, work smart. Don't work hard, work smart. That's the Carlos Valderrama approach to the game.
So here's Dwarika. Valderrama comes from not far from here. We're just off the coast of South America. Dwarika to the far post. Sancho goes over the top, and it hits the backstay just over the bar. Zach Thornton looked pretty confident as he watched that ball go over. He must have had the radar on because that was pretty close.
Well, the United States is outmatched on these set plays in terms of aerial power, because when you look at a moment ago, Marvin Andrews, this time Brett Sancho, and you know Anthony Rougier, when he comes forward, he's very powerful in there. Stern John's very strong in there. There's just not enough U.S. defenders around who can match up with that.
There's Eddie Pope, who is one who can. He steps up and wins the ball in the middle third. Donovan has to volley it wildly, and Jones tries to save it for Cherundolo, who must knock it out of bounds. The U.S., again, this is one of those situations where if Reyna's in the game, Claudio Reyna makes a lot of 20% passes into 90% passes, settles it down, reduces the blood pressure, and the U.S. can still hold the ball.
This is also where the United States misses a Brian McBride or even a Tony Sena, who could come back and help defend on those high balls into the box.
O'Brien for Donovan. Has Moore in the middle, and also Stewart entering the box. Sancho chops him down from behind. The U.S. will have the free kick. Zach Thornton has been saving the Americans bacon here in the second half, Ty.
Yeah, he's made 2 stellar stops. The last one in particular. Yeah, there's the one off the Stern John long-range drive as Thornton shows his range. And here, Dwarica being a menace, getting the through ball into Nigel Pierre, who turns well, but Thornton off his line to cut the angle.
Thornton doing what he has to do to win that third goalkeeper spot. You must carry 3 goalkeepers on your 23-man roster for the World Cup finals. Now here's one of those situations that FIFA ought to address. Where does the free kick come from, and where should the wall be? Agus restarts it quickly, and Vanny sprays one wide. Vanny's capable of picking a corner there, but just didn't get the right part of the foot on the ball.
Well, there's too many delays sometimes in a soccer match. Players go down that maybe aren't injured, and that's the latest word out of FIFA, that they are going to be punished severely. Players faking or over-dramatizing injuries. But the wall situation, when the players won't scoot back to the full 10 yards, delays too much of too many games.
Here comes Trinidad and Tobago in the middle third on the flank again, where they've been successful in the last few minutes. Sancho up for Nigel Pierre against Pope and Cherundolo, finds some space, looks for John. It comes all the way across. John guilty of the hold at the top of the penalty area. A reminder, coming up next, the first head-to-head competition of the season between Michelle Kwan, Irina Slutskaya, and Sarah Hughes. Of course, they'll be going head-to-head in Salt Lake City in the Olympics. It's Skate Canada coming up next on ABC Sports. Stay tuned for that. The U.S. skating a bit in the middle third of the field and letting Trinidad and Tobago get a lot of opportunities here in the middle portion of the second half. Got about 25 minutes to play. There was no stoppage time in the first half, which might be a result of the stakes of this game, which are nil. Peter Prendergast not wanting to add time and the potential for injury in a game in which neither the United States nor Trinidad and Tobago has anything to win or to lose. Dwarica with the steal off O'Brien. He's looking long. Stern John on the right against Agus. Mason racing into the box. The chip into the middle. Mason back to John at the arc. Outside of the foot, Nigel Pierre got stuffed with the pass. Finds Dwarica. Slides it through. Agus reads it first. He's quicker than John to the ball and lets it roll out.
Well, Jeff Agus doing what the Trinidad and Tobago defenders did throughout much of the first half. He got the body in front of Stern John, cutting off Stern John's path to that through ball.
This portion of the match is brought to you by Jolly Rancher. Jovan Karofsky, who had a couple of first half chances, tries to spring Joe Max Moore, but Moore is offside by a step. We get a stoppage, and the United States wants to make a substitution. Josh Wolf returns to action for the first time since April, when he had an ankle and foot injury. Final round of World Cup qualifying, and now here he is back from injury at the other end of the run. Mason against Kobe Jones down in the corner. Dwarica, very dangerous against O'Brien. Beats him to the right. The drive goes over the top. Dwarica creates his own space.
Donovan done for the day, as was his other 19-year-old counterpart, DeMarcus Beasley. Good showing. Donovan always dangerous with the ball at his feet because he has the confidence to accelerate past defenders. He reads the game, has tremendous vision, but not on the scoreboard today.
O'Brien comes back to Ernie Stewart. He has Vanny available. Elcock the pressure now. Comes back to Agus. Stewart. Pope. Cherundolo available on the side. He goes forward looking for Wolf. Jones chips for Wolf. Wolf in behind Mason, goes down, tumbles hard. Play on, says Prendergast.
What a welcome sight, though, when an athlete who's been out long-term with a potentially career-threatening injury, to see him sprinting out there again. Josh Wolf of the Chicago Fire taking a hit here, but still staying with play, looking for the return pass from Kobe Jones. Taking another clip and bouncing up from it.
Hislop drives it out over midfield. Pierre the header. Agus gives it back to Eve, trying to chip for John. There's Zach Thornton. Don't want to run into that tower. Kobe Jones walking it out. Here's Wolf, puts the shift on. Trying to get around Sancho, reaches around to make a nice slide tackle. And that'll roll out. The referee's assistant, I believe, is calling a foul against Wolf.
It may have been. But Josh Wolf looking to put it into that low gear, which I don't know if he quite has it yet, but it was a good little fake as he turned. Recovery on the tackle by Sancho. Wolf tangling Sancho's legs up. But the Josh Wolf of maybe a few weeks hence might even get away from that slide tackle.
Andrews onto the right side. Eve driving it forward. Fatigue beginning to set in. It was extremely hot when the game began. About 20 minutes to go, so the seams should be opening defensively.
And the report is that there was a mild concussion to DeMarcus Beasley. That's the official diagnosis.
Cherundolo through ball for Kobe Jones. Brings it back, the one-time drive. Joe Max Moore over the top, but a good shift by the U.S. down the right side.
Well, Kobe Jones getting his cross in, pulling it off of the end line. Cherundolo starting it, playing a good ball into Jones's run behind Mason. Jones wisely drawing it back for the first-time strike by Joe Max Moore.
So the seams are opening.
Moore disappointed, though. A striker of his level is expected to put those on target.
This portion of the match is brought to you by Allstate. Moore settles, has Jones on the right and gives it to him. Wolf entering the box. Jones to the far post. Hislop will watch it shank out of bounds. So the U.S. now starting to press it a little bit forward, and I think the U.S. was sitting back a bit in the early part of the second half here, conserving its energy for a late go. Now Sancho is down, and it appears he may have a cramping problem. He's at the top of the box, and Prendergast is calling for the medics to come out and take him off. With this stoppage, U.S. players go over and grab a drink. Joe Max Moore was an absolute giant in October against Jamaica.
Joe Max Moore, who's been involved in many huge games for the United States. 1 year ago, he set up the game-winning goal to Clint Mathis to put the U.S. in the second round of qualifying. Then, with a goal against Jamaica on October 7th, and the ensuing penalty kick, which won the game, putting the USA into their fourth consecutive, unprecedented for the United States, fourth consecutive World Cup.
So off goes Sancho. We anticipate we'll see him again. A reminder, the Raiders look to remain unbeaten in the division, the AFC West. They visit the Seattle Seahawks tonight. It's Sunday Night Football on ESPN. NFL primetime begins at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Game time at 8:30 Eastern tonight on ESPN. Stern John. Vanny wants a handball, won't get the call. Elcock overlapping to the right corner. Stewart makes sure the ball comes back to Saunders. Saunders distributes to Dwarica, who was dropped all the way back into the left side of midfield.
Angus Eve has started to sneak up more often into the attack, much like Dwarica was earlier in the game.
Rougier. This is Andrews. Drives it forward and gives it away to Stewart. Trinidad and Tobago playing short-handed here. Moore, nice ball for O'Brien. Looking long for Jones. Hislop off his line and snags it. Kobe Jones would have had a golden chance. And again, Hislop reading the cross that he sees about 1,000 times a year in England.
But good vision by John O'Brien to look all the way to the opposite side to Kobe Jones, who was free.
John to Dwarika. Dwarika penetrating against Pope. Tries the chip, and Thornton off his line has it easily.
Arnold Dwarika showing enough here. He's had tryouts in Major League Soccer.
Dwarika's father still plays in over 35 leagues here in Trinidad and Tobago. So runs in the family.
Dwarika today, almost every time he's touched the ball, has caused problems for the United States.
Mason trying to tear away from O'Brien. That's a foul on the U.S. Addison Belfon is coming into the game, and that will be in place of Brent Sancho, who has left. So Belfon in, and the Soca Warriors use a substitution. The U.S. has used 2 and has 1 remaining. The game's been a little bit flat, Ty.
Well, this is a good, fast surface, and I was hoping with that tremendous acceleration of Landon Donovan and of DeMarcus Beasley that they'd be able to take advantage of that. But what they were not able to deal with, many times they were about to push the ball past a Trinidad and Tobago defender, and they were muscled by good defensive positioning, muscled off the ball.
Karofsky has Wolf, leaves the pass behind him, and Belfon has his first touch. Mason. Stern John out wide for Nigel Pierre. Saunders. Eve, first touch. Karofsky gives it right back to Stern John. Out onto the right to Mason, sneaking forward. Let's rip. Rather, that was Ansel Elcock who had sneaked forward. Very difficult to make out who the players are as we look into the sun here in the second half. Kobe Jones holding the ball and drawing it back.
Good little start of possession for the United States upon winning that ball. Greg Vanny, good composure, knocked it back rather than just booting it away and waiting for the next attack by the Trinidad and Tobago team. The U.S. has maintained possession.
By the way, if this result holds, the U.S. will finish 3rd out of 6 in the CONCACAF regional standings, with Mexico vaulting past with 3 points on the victory over Honduras today and qualifying. Nigel Pierre against Agus down in the corner. John going middle, and Pierre just doesn't have it to try to cross that back.
Well, Jeff Agus did have it on a quick turn and being able to stay with Nigel Pierre and forcing the bad cross.
This portion of the match is brought to you by Nike. Elcock is done and Nigel Daniel is in. And that may be a bit of the passing of the torch in Soca Warriors soccer, as Elcock at age 32 almost certainly won't be around for the next World Cup rotation.
He expects to be back, though, with the Columbus Crew for the 2002 Major League Soccer season.
Belfon to Andrews, who has shifted middle. Here's Rougier under immediate pressure from Wolf. Dwarika, Saunders, Belfon. Chirundolo heads it down. Dwarika jumps on the ball. Jones stops his progress. Dwarika pulls it back, looks for Nigel Pierre. Pope tries to turn it away from him. Thornton off the line to take it away from Pierre. And if that had been a collision, there would have been fireworks that could have been seen in Cuba.
I'll tell you what, my ears are echoing from the thump on that ball. Thornton blasted it about 70 yards.
Rougier with a nice turn away from Stewart. Here comes Stern John. Diagonal run from Eve. He hits him in the back, and the ball dies for Thornton.
A wider gaps opening up on this field, especially in the midfield positions for both teams. What you see is at times team looking for a winning goal, sending a few players forward, but they're not tracking back quickly enough, allowing those big gaps for the counterattack.
This portion of the match is brought to you by Lego. Jones. Eve the defender. O'Brien coming back out of traffic. Karofsky. Moore as Jones middle. Goes corner for Wolf. Against Belfont. Tries the near post cross and doesn't have it where he wants it.
Wolf obviously not sharp his first game in quite a few months, but healthy, ready to sharpen himself and try and work his way into that 23-man roster for 2002. And we should point out, Jack, that the standings in terms of qualifying in this final group of qualifying in CONCACAF, it doesn't matter whether you finish first, second, or third, does not affect the draw that will take place on December 1st.
Yeah, it's a pass-fail test. The United States passed. Where they finish in that top three is irrelevant. They've got a ticket to Korea and Japan. By the way, the United States will play Korea in a full international, also known as a friendly, following the World Cup draw. It'll be about a week after that. And you'll be able to see that game on ESPN on a Monday afternoon, second Monday of December. Andrews up the right side. Tuarica, who has lurked near the sidelines in midfield and has had some very exciting runs in this game. Mason, who has flip-flopped sides with him. John brings it back to Saunders. Belfont. Rougier. Tuarica. Trying to go over the top of Agus. Pierre is back there. Agus doesn't want to give up the corner and instead concedes the throw. Daniel will inbound the ball. Angus Eve trying to turn against O'Brien. Top of the box. Pierre has a little bit of space. Agus closes it. First time shot, Mason. He's way off the mark. Well, let's look at the Americans who are trying to make an impression on Bruce Arena. Zach Thornton, the keeper, has had a couple of stellar saves, had one moment of miscommunication in the first half, but other than that, he's been pretty solid.
Yeah, he's done the job, no question. Coming off of his line to cut angles, making some big saves.
Karofsky in the corner for Moore, tries the far post cross, and that is off the mark as well. And a goal kick coming to Trinidad and Tobago.
That was a carbon copy of Josh Wolf's attempted cross a few moments ago, and Kobe Jones before that. It's like the Bermuda Triangle over there. But Jovan Karofsky on that list, being assessed by Bruce Arena. Certainly Greg Vanny.
Here's Tuarica. O'Brien gets a piece of it, and there's Pope to toe poke it over to Cherundolo. And Cherundolo also has a position that he has to try to win. An undersized right back. He's good at pushing forward, but sometimes gets outmanned in physical confrontations. He's held his own today. O'Brien, top of the back box. Moore steps on it, gets a second chance. Tries to find Karofsky in traffic, but Andrews, the big man, is there. Now Stern John has Tuarica on the right side. This is Daniel. Sprays it across for Angus Eve, makes a nice trap to recover it. Karofsky the pressure. Hard out wide to Daniel. Brings it back to the perimeter. Andrews to Saunders. Tuarica has Mason on the left. Karofsky shepherding him a bit. Stern John for Tuarica, goes through the seam. Tuarica, the bad angle off Cherundolo. It's a corner to Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago players appealing for a handball against Cherundolo. They're not going to get that call.
Well, Tuarica still has the energy. He also still has the creative juices flowing as he's been able to create space for himself. A good little overlap here in the takeover. Tuarica, Cherundolo, though, staying with him and reading it, positioning himself very well.
Late opportunity here. Set play chance. Tuarica to the short post. Poorly aimed ball, and Agus heads it across the sideline 50 yards from goal. Zach Thornton has been extremely effective in goal. Tuarica juggling around Cherundolo, punches it middle. Agus heads it back. And there is Zach Thornton. Thornton drives a 65-yarder, looking for Wolf. He can't get up high enough. Daniel with fresh legs is all the way back. Wolf bangs him. Ball comes out to the U.S.
Go out on the field the same way I did at the beginning at the end.
82nd minute. The United States is going to get another substitution here. And this will be the third and final change of personnel in the game. Joe Max Moore is coming out for the U.S. And I cannot yet
Jesse Marsh, yeah.
make out who. Okay, it's Marsh coming in. So there's going to be some shifting up front. I think Karofsky will go forward.
And O'Brien will probably be able to go forward a bit more because Marsh is the quintessential holding midfielder for the Chicago Fire. Really being recognized here for all the great work he's done for Bob Bradley's team over the last few years, and does a lot of the dirty work deep in the midfield for Chicago, even allowing Chris Armas, who's being rested today, to get forward more into the Chicago attack.
Armas, the male athlete of the year for U.S. Soccer in 2000. Just became a father for the first time. Now here's Wolf working in the corner. Brings it back out for Jones. First time cross goes way over the top of O'Brien, and that will scoot right out of bounds. Let's take a look at the All-State save of the day, Ty.
Well, Zach Thornton, particularly early in the second half of play, was called upon to make a couple of huge plays to keep the score 0-0. Dwarika putting a ball into Angus Eve, but Thornton very quick off of his line, and in a few other situations, the All-State save of the day right there from big Zach Thornton.
Errol McFarland has come into the game for Trinidad and Tobago. I do not know the player for whom he has come in. We'll try to get word from the sideline. Stern John drills it across for Mason. He came in for Nigel Pierre. So McFarland, the forward, in for a forward, and both teams have used the full complement of subs. Wolf was onside, but the ball scoots all the way through to Shaka Hislop, whose goal now is completely in the shadows. This portion of the match brought to you by Avaya. We're in the 84th minute. The United States closing out its 10-game final round run of World Cup qualifiers. It is into the World Cup finals thanks to what happened in the October game. It beat Jamaica 2-1, while this team from Trinidad and Tobago came up with a stunning win at Honduras. Honduras, by the way, lost today 3-0 at Mexico City, a game it had to win, and Mexico joins Costa Rica and the U.S. in the World Cup final.
That's thanks to the performance of this Trinidad and Tobago team. The United States able to make it in with a game to spare. And in a way, the Trinidad and Tobago team playing for a fallen teammate, Mickey Trotman, former player in Major League Soccer from Trinidad and Tobago, killed in a car accident leading up to that game at Honduras by Trinidad, and I think helped inspire them to that huge victory, one which helped propel the United States into the World Cup.
Mason touches it out of bounds. Jones in from Marsh, who is the 38th player to appear in semifinal and final round qualifying for the U.S. Wolf deflects it off a Trinidad and Tobago defender, and Prendergast says play on. It's not a handball. Marsh goes topsy-turvy over the tackle in the center circle, and it'll be a restart for the U.S. Stern John in the middle of it.
Stern John has been a one-man wrecking crew anytime the ball is in the air, leading with both forearms.
Jones, Wolf, nice ball in traffic. Stewart comes out wide left for Vanny, fakes the cross against Daniel, trying to go inside for O'Brien. Andrews takes it away, drives it wide toward midfield. It'll be a U.S. restart. And as we get into the final minutes here with the sun beginning to set, one more time we really should mention Paul Caligiuri, who made history on this field in 1989 and has retired from competitive soccer. And what a tremendous figure he has been in U.S. soccer history. You can't mention the U.S. against Trinidad and Tobago without mentioning Caligiuri's shot heard round the world into the goal toward which the U.S. is attacking. It came late, and it got the U.S. legitimacy. Cherundolo to the far post, and that one will not stay in bounds.
Paul Caligiuri managed to finish his career also as a professional with 2 trophies, 2 medals this year. The CONCACAF Champions Cup with the LA Galaxy back in January, and the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup just a few weeks ago for the LA Galaxy. Good way to finish a stellar career.
A cherry on top of his Hershey's syrup sundae, if you will. Flawless segue. This portion of the match brought to you by Hershey's syrup. It's nice not to have the pressure on the United States At one point, it looked as if they would have to win this game in order to get into the World Cup finals. But because of the improbable turn of events and the focus that Trinidad and Tobago had in its October game at Honduras, playing in the memory of Trotman and winning, this game means nothing to either team. It's been a chance for some individuals to show some skill, but by and large, it's been a pretty disappointing afternoon of soccer, a very flat game. The U.S. playing conservatively, trying not to make a lot of mistakes, and Trinidad and Tobago not opening enough for the U.S. to get a lot of seams. O'Brien tries a long shot. Hislop has it covered easily, and it'll skid wide.
Yeah, Mickey Troutman, a former member of the Dallas Burn and the Miami Fusion of Major League Soccer. O'Brien trying from long range. He had a couple chances in the first half that looked more dangerous, but think of the U.S. team adding back in a Clint Mathis, a Ben Olsen, a Brian McBride. The list kind of goes on. A Claudio Reyna, of course, David Reggie, Tony Sane, players that have been rested, a Chris Armas. This is not a true glimpse of what the U.S. team will probably look like as we get closer to the World Cup.
Andrews back to Rougier. He comes forward for Saunders with Stewart marking him. Stewart dumps it off. This is Marsh now. Stewart. Cherundolo going up the right side. Mason the defender. Cherundolo takes him on. Mason picks his pocket. Dwarika there to rescue the ball. Square for Saunders. Back for Dwarika. Cherundolo tries a slide tackle. What a player this Dwarika has shown to be today. Unlucky bounce comes off of him, and Prendergast lets the play stand.
Dwarika very light on his feet. He's covered a great deal of ground out here today, and he's made many good decisions on the ball. He's dribbled when it's been on for him. He's sent splitting through balls in when that's been on.
Jones for Wolf. He drives it, but shanks it. And again, you mentioned before, you got to expect Josh Wolf is going to be a little rusty. He'll have no sympathy on himself, but...
Well, practice is one thing. And speaking of splitting through passes, a good one by Kobe Jones, and a Josh Wolf obviously not completely fit yet. And game fit is different from being healed and physically strong and fit. You have to be also game sharp. Wolf not there yet.
90th minute now. I would be surprised even with the long stoppage when we saw Sancho go down with cramps if we would see any stoppage time added. There will be a couple of minutes of stoppage time. We're hearing now 2 minutes of stoppage time added. And this is what you hope not to see as O'Brien goes down holding his left knee. And at this point, the United States, the best result is the final whistle. John O'Brien, for all his skill and his value, has gotten banged up an awful lot. He's an aggressive player. He gets into a lot of tussles. But, man, he has had to spend a lot of time in the trainer's room in his career. He's a valuable player to the U.S., and they need him healthy. Zach Thornton is the Chevrolet man of the match. Chevrolet will donate $1,000 to the U.S. Soccer Foundation in Zach Thornton's name. He's going to get tested here, coming off his line, and he snares it out at the penalty spot.
He'd better as the Chevrolet man of the match.
Marsh brings it back to Cherundolo. Stewart tries to drive it across to Vanny. Daniel, one of the few last chances coming up here. Trinidad and Tobago trying to finish with a win against the U.S. Dwarika drives it middle. Stewart heads it forward. O'Brien, who is okay, punches it forward, and Karofsky is a step offside at midfield.
Well, Karofsky, a player hoping to make a mark here and move up in the esteem of Bruce Arena as he decides who to bring along for the World Cup. Karofsky had that golden chance in the first half, a header off of a Greg Vanny cross. Did not manage to hit the target with it. Looked a little bit dangerous also on a free kick in that first half.
Belfon draws it back to Shaka Hislop. Beautiful day in Port of Spain, Trinidad. It has not been beautiful soccer today. Lacking in intensity. Nothing at stake. Daniel on the right side, driving it into the box. John tries to turn against Pope, who blocks him. Turnaround shot, goes wide.
Well, Stern John would not take no for an answer. He kept coming at it. A pretty well-organized U.S. defense right there. Ball coming in from the right side, and Stern John, good first touch. The physical strength to ride off of Eddie Pope and still get the shot in. Thornton appeared to have it covered completely. But one of the main concerns for me, Jack, is that time period early in this second half when there were just too many gaps in the U.S. back line. And that's when Zach Thornton had to make a couple of those big saves.
Jones. It's over. The United States finishes with a 0-0 tie against Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be back to Port of Spain to wrap up our coverage of the final round of World Cup qualifying right after this.